Goals without action are just wishes. And wishes don't build fortunes, they don't build character, and they don't change lives. Only disciplined, focused action does that. Now, I grew up on an Idaho farm. Farm life teaches you many things, but one of the most important is this: you reap what you sow. If you don't plant in the spring, you can't harvest in the fall. It doesn't matter how sincere you are, how good your intentions are, or how badly you want to harvest. Nature operates by law, not by wish. Your life works the same way. The results you get are directly related to the actions you take. Not the actions you intend to take someday. Not the actions you know you should take. The actions you actually take. And here's where we come to this idea of forcing yourself. You see, all of us face resistance. All of us have that voice inside that says, do it tomorrow. Take it easy. You deserve a break. And sometimes that voice makes sense. Rest is important. But the difference between success and mediocrity often comes down to what you do when that voice speaks up. Successful people have learned to override that voice when necessary. They've developed the discipline, yes, the ability to force themselves to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether they feel like it or not. I remember talking to a young man once who told me he just couldn't seem to get ahead financially. I asked him about his habits, and he told me, well, I know I should save some money each month, but something always comes up. I said, young man, that's the problem right there. You haven't forced yourself to pay yourself first. You see, most people pay everyone else first, the landlord, the credit card company, the grocery store, and then they try to save what's left. But usually there's nothing left. The key is to force yourself to put money aside first before you pay anyone else. Even if it's just a small amount, even if it seems insignificant. Because it's not about the amount, it's about the habit. It's about forcing yourself to do what needs to be done. And that principle applies to every area of your life. Your life, your relationships, your education, your career. Success comes from forcing yourself to do the right things consistently, even when, especially when you don't feel like it. Now, let me tell you about two different types of pain. There's the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And here's the key: you get to choose which pain you'll experience. When your alarm goes off at 5 a.m. so you can exercise before work, you feel the pain of discipline. When you pass on dessert because you're committed to your health goals, you feel the pain of discipline. When you stay late to finish a project instead of going out with friends, you feel the pain of discipline. But these pains are temporary. They're small investments that yield enormous returns. On the other hand, the pain of regret, of looking back at a life of unfulfilled potential, of wondering what if, of knowing you could have done more, that pain can last a lifetime. So I ask you, which pain would you rather feel? You know, one of the reasons people don't achieve their goals is that they don't know how to manage themselves. They know what to do. That's rarely the problem. The problem is actually doing it. And that's where self-management comes in. That's where this idea of forcing yourself becomes so valuable. I had a mentor early in my life who taught me something I've never forgotten. He said, Jim, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom. That changed everything for me. I stopped hoping for an easier path and started focusing on becoming the kind of person who could walk the path that was before me. And that's my challenge to you today. Don't wait for the path to your goals to get easier. It won't. Instead, become stronger. Develop more discipline. Learn to force yourself to take the necessary actions consistently. Let me tell you about a concept I call the slight edge. It's the idea that small, seemingly insignificant actions, when performed consistently over time, create massive results. The problem is that these actions are so small, so easy to do, but also so easy not to do. Reading 10 pages of a good book every day is easy to do. It's also easy not to do. Saving a small percentage of your income is easy to do. It's also easy not to do. Making one more sales call, expressing appreciation to your spouse, drinking water instead of soda, all of these things are easy to do. But they're also easy not to do. And here's the key: the actions that are easy not to do when neglected don't produce immediate negative consequences. If you don't read today, your life doesn't fall apart tomorrow. If you don't save money today, you don't go bankrupt tomorrow. If you don't make that extra sales call, you don't lose your job tomorrow. But what happens when these small neglects compound over time? What happens when you consistently choose what's easy over what's right? The consequences eventually come, and they're often devastating. On the flip side, what happens when you consistently force yourself to do these small positive actions? When you override the voice that says it doesn't matter or do it tomorrow, the results compound in the most amazing ways. I've watched people transform their lives through this principle. People who were broke becoming financially independent. People who were overweight becoming healthy and vibrant. People who were stuck in dead-end jobs building thriving businesses. And it all started with learning to force themselves to do what needed to be done, even when they didn't feel like it. You know, I've studied successful people for decades, and I've noticed something interesting. They all have different personalities, different backgrounds, different strengths and weaknesses. But they share one common trait. They've mastered the art of taking action. They've learned to push through resistance. They've developed the habit of doing what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. And that's what I want for you. I want you to develop that inner strength, that discipline, that ability to force yourself to take action toward your goals consistently. Now, let's talk about how to actually do this. How do you develop this ability to force yourself to achieve your goals? First, you need clarity. You need to know exactly what you want and why you want it. Vague goals produce vague results. Specific goals backed by burning desire produce specific results. I often ask people, what do you want? And they give me general answers like more money or better health or success. But that's not enough. How much money? What does better health look like specifically? How will you know when you've achieved success? You need to define your goals with precision. Instead of more money, decide on a specific income target. Instead of better health, define the exact weight, measurements, or fitness level you want to achieve. Instead of success, identify the specific achievements that would constitute success for you. And then this is crucial. You need to connect with why these goals matter with you. What's driving you? What will achieving these goals do for your life, for your family, for your sense of fulfillment and purpose? When your why is strong enough, the how becomes easier. When you're deeply connected to the reasons behind your goals, forcing yourself to take action becomes less of a struggle. Second, you need a plan. You need to break down your goals into actionable steps. The journey of 1,000 miles really does begin with a single step, and then another, and then another. What's the first thing you need to do to move toward your goal? And then what's next? Map out the path as clearly as possible. Now, the path will almost certainly change as you go. You'll encounter obstacles you didn't anticipate. You'll discover shortcuts you didn't know existed. That's fine. The important thing is that you have a direction and a set of concrete actions to take. Third, and this is where most people fall short, you need to establish rituals, routines, and habits that support your goals. You need to design your life in a way that makes it easier to do what you need to do. If your goal is to write a book, you might establish a ritual of writing for 1 hour every morning before the rest of your day begins. If your goal is financial independence, you might set up automatic transfers to your investment accounts on the day your paycheck arrives. If your goal is better health, you might prepare healthy meals for the week every Sunday. These routines reduce the need for willpower. They remove decision fatigue. They make it more likely that you'll do what needs to be done, even on days when you don't feel particularly motivated. Fourth, you need accountability. Human beings are social creatures. We're influenced by the expectations and feedback of others. Use this to your advantage by making commitments to people whose opinion you value. Tell someone about your goal and your plan to achieve it. Ask them to check in with you regularly. Join a mastermind group of like-minded individuals who are also working toward significant goals. Hire a coach who will hold you to a higher standard than you might hold yourself. When you know someone else is watching, you're more likely to force yourself to follow through, even when the initial enthusiasm for your goal has faded. Fifth, you need to measure your progress. What gets measured gets improved. Track your actions and your results. Keep a journal, use an app, create a spreadsheet, whatever works for you, but keep score. This does two important things. It shows you whether your actions are producing the results you want, and it provides feedback that can fuel your motivation. There's something deeply satisfying about seeing progress, even if it's small. Now, let me address something important. Forcing yourself doesn't mean being harsh or cruel to yourself. It doesn't mean ignoring your limitations or pushing until you break. It means being honest with yourself. It means recognizing the difference between legitimate limitations and mere excuses. It means understanding that discomfort is not the same as harm. I remember a conversation I had with a successful entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar business from scratch. I asked him about the early days when he was just starting out. He told me those were tough times. I was working long hours, taking risks, facing rejection daily, but I never confused being uncomfortable with being unhappy. The discomfort was temporary. The fulfillment of building something meaningful was worth every moment of it. That's a profound distinction. Discomfort is not the same as unhappiness. Growth requires discomfort. Achievement requires pushing beyond what's easy and familiar. If you wait until you feel completely ready and comfortable, you'll wait forever. Let me share something else that might help you. There's a concept called activation energy in chemistry. It's the minimum energy needed to start a chemical reaction. Once the reaction starts, it can continue with less energy, but that initial push, that's the hardest part. The same principle applies to human behavior. The hardest part of exercising isn't doing the exercise, it's getting off the couch and putting on your workout clothes. The hardest part of saving isn't setting aside the money, it's resisting the urge to spend it on something else. The hardest part of making sales calls isn't talking to prospects, it's picking up the phone for the first call. Understanding this can change how you approach forcing yourself to take action. Instead of focusing on the entire task, focus on just initiating it. Tell yourself, I'll just put on my running shoes and step outside, I'll just write one paragraph, I'll just make one call. Often, once you start, momentum takes over. The activation energy is only needed to begin. After that, continuing becomes much easier. Another strategy that can help you force yourself to achieve your goals is what I call raising the stakes. Make it more painful to not do what you need to do than to do it. For example, give a friend $500 with instructions to donate it to a cause you despise if you don't complete a certain task by a specific deadline, or make a public commitment to achieve a certain result, knowing that your reputation is on the line. Now, I don't want you to mistake this for negative motivation. I'm not suggesting you punish yourself. I'm suggesting you create consequences that will help you override momentary discomfort in favor of long-term goals. You know, I've often said that discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. And discipline is largely about forcing yourself to do what you know you should do, even when you don't feel like doing it. But here's something important. Over time, with consistent practice, what once required force becomes habit. What once felt like a struggle becomes second nature. The actions that initially demanded significant willpower eventually require less and less conscious effort. That's the beautiful thing about human beings. We adapt. We're designed to grow, to learn, to evolve. And when you consistently force yourself to take actions aligned with your goals, you're not just moving toward those goals, you're also becoming a different person. A stronger person, a more disciplined person, a person capable of achieving even more in the future. I've seen this transformation countless times. People who once couldn't save $1 becoming careful stewards of wealth. People who couldn't run a block becoming marathon finishers. People who were afraid to speak up becoming powerful communicators. The change happens gradually, almost imperceptibly day by day. But over time, the results are remarkable. And it all starts with that decision to force yourself to take action, to do what needs to be done regardless of how you feel in the moment. Now let's talk about some specific areas where you might need to force yourself in order to achieve your goals. First, you might need to force yourself to get started. Inertia is powerful. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. And people who aren't taking action tend to continue not taking action. Breaking through that initial resistance often requires force, a conscious decision to override comfort and familiarity in favor of growth and achievement. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Don't wait until you feel ready. Start now with what you have where you are. Force yourself to take that first step, however small it might be. Second, you might need to force yourself to continue when progress seems slow or results aren't immediately visible. This is where many people give up. They start strong, full of enthusiasm and determination. But when the initial excitement fades and the path becomes difficult, they abandon their goals. Remember the principle of compound effect. Small actions consistently taken yield enormous results over time. But you have to give them time. You have to force yourself to continue even when it seems like nothing is happening. I'm reminded of the story of the bamboo farmer. When you plant bamboo, something interesting happens, or rather doesn't happen. For the first year, you see no visible growth above the ground. The second year, nothing. The third year, still nothing. The fourth year, absolutely nothing. You water and tend and care for this plant, and there's no visible evidence that anything is happening. But in the fifth year, something miraculous occurs. The bamboo suddenly grows up to 80 feet in just 6 weeks. Was it the 6 weeks of growth that created this remarkable plant? No, it was the 5 years of developing an unseen foundation. The bamboo was growing the entire time, you just couldn't see it. Your goals might work the same way. You might be making progress that isn't yet visible. The foundations of success are being built even when you can't see them. Force yourself to continue, to keep taking action, to keep moving forward. Third, you might need to force yourself to maintain standards of excellence. It's easy to cut corners. It's easy to do just enough to get by, but excellence requires more. It requires attention to detail, commitment to quality, refusal to accept mediocrity. I've always believed that the way you do anything is the way you do everything. If you allow yourself to do sloppy work in one area, that attitude will infect other areas of your life. Force yourself to maintain high standards, even when no one would notice if you didn't. Fourth, you might need to force yourself to face and overcome fear. Fear is a natural part of pursuing significant goals. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of looking foolish, fear of success and the responsibilities that come with it. But fear is not a command, it's information. It tells you that you're pushing beyond your comfort zone, that you're attempting something significant. That's a good thing. Force yourself to feel the fear and take action anyway. I've often told the story of how I was terrified before my first public speaking engagement. My heart was racing, my palms were sweaty, my mind was filled with all the ways I might fail. But I forced myself to walk onto that stage anyway. And while that first talk was far from perfect, it was the beginning of a journey that has led to me speaking to millions of people around the world. Had I listened to my fear, had I not forced myself to take that first step, how different my life would be today. How many opportunities I would have missed, how many lives I wouldn't have touched. What about you? What opportunities are waiting on the other side of your fears? What impact could you have if you forced yourself to move forward despite those fears? Fifth, you might need to force yourself to learn and grow continuously. The world is changing at an unprecedented rate. What brought you success in the past may not bring you success in the future. You need to be constantly learning, adapting, evolving. Read books, take courses, find mentors, study your field deeply, expand your knowledge beyond your field to gain fresh perspectives and insights. Force yourself to be a lifelong student, even when it would be easier to coast on what you already know. Sixth, you might need to force yourself to persist through failure and setbacks. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every significant achievement is preceded by numerous failures. The key is not avoiding failure, but responding to it correctly. When you face a setback, and you will force yourself to extract the lesson from it. Force yourself to get back up and try again, perhaps with a different approach. Force yourself to see failure not as a verdict on your worth or potential, but as feedback that can guide your next steps. I remember talking to a successful inventor who holds dozens of patents. I asked him about his process, and he told me something profound. He said, for every successful invention, there are hundreds of failures, but I don't see them as failures. I see them as experiments that yielded valuable data. Each failure eliminated one way that doesn't work and brought me closer to the way that does. What a perspective. What if you approached your goals with that mindset? What if you saw setbacks not as reasons to quit, but as valuable data points on your journey to success? Now, I want to address something that holds many people back from forcing themselves to achieve their goals: perfectionism. Perfectionism disguises itself as high standards, but it's actually a form of fear. It's the fear that says, I can't do it perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. This is a trap. Perfectionism paralyzes, it prevents action. And without action, there is no achievement, no growth, no progress. Force yourself to embrace what I call imperfect action. Better to do something imperfectly than to do nothing flawlessly. Start with what you have, do what you can, use what you know. And as you take action, you'll gain the experience, knowledge, and resources to do better in the future. Remember, the perfect moment to start never arrives. The perfect plan doesn't exist. The perfect circumstances are an illusion. Force yourself to begin anyway, with all the imperfections and uncertainties that entails. Let me share another important principle, law of diminishing intent. This law states that the longer you wait to implement an idea or take action on a decision, the less likely you are to ever do it. The enthusiasm, the motivation, the commitment, they all diminish with time. That's why forcing yourself to take immediate action is so crucial. When you have an insight, when you make a decision, when you set a goal, act on it right away. Do something, anything, to create momentum. If you decide to improve your health, don't wait until Monday or the first of the month or the new year. Do something today. Take a walk. Drink more water. Eat a healthy meal. Force yourself to begin immediately, even if the action is small. This principle has served me well throughout my life. When I discover a new idea in a book, I don't just highlight it and move on. I ask myself, how can I implement this today? And then I force myself to take some action, however modest, to begin applying that idea. The results of this approach have been remarkable. Ideas that might have remained theoretical became practical. Concepts that might have been forgotten became integrated into my life and work. All because I forced myself to act quickly before the intent could diminish. What about you? What decisions have you made but not yet acted on? What goals have you set but not yet pursued? What ideas have inspired you but not yet been implemented? Force yourself to take action on them today before the law of diminishing intent robs you of the potential impact. Now, I want to address another crucial aspect of forcing yourself to achieve your goals, managing your environment. Your environment, the people, places, and things that surround you, has a profound influence on your thoughts, feelings, and actions. If your environment doesn't support your goals, you'll constantly have to fight against it. You'll need to exert tremendous force just to maintain, let alone progress. But if you deliberately design your environment to support your goals, you'll need less force to achieve them. Surround yourself with people who inspire and challenge you. Remove or limit exposure to those who drain your energy or undermine your ambitions. Organize your physical space to make positive actions easier and negative actions harder. Curate the information you consume to fuel your growth rather than distract from it. I once worked with a man who was trying to build a business while spending his evenings with friends who mocked his ambitions and encouraged him to stop taking life so seriously. No matter how much force he applied to his goals during the day, his evening environment was undoing his progress. When he finally made the difficult decision to distance himself from those relationships and seek out other entrepreneurs instead, his progress accelerated dramatically. The amount of force required to move forward decreased because his environment was now working with him rather than against him. What about your environment? Is it supporting your goals or hindering them? What changes could you make to reduce the amount of force needed to achieve what you want? Another critical factor in forcing yourself to achieve your goals is managing your inner dialogue. The conversations you have with yourself about yourself, your capabilities, and your circumstances. The words you say to yourself matter. They shape your beliefs, which influence your actions, which determine your results. If your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, limitation, and negativity, you'll need to exert tremendous force to overcome it. I've always been fascinated by the story of Roger Bannister, the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Before he did it in 1954, many experts believed it was physically impossible. They thought the human heart would explode from the effort. But Bannister didn't accept that limitation. He believed it could be done, and he forced himself to train toward that goal despite the prevailing wisdom. After he broke the barrier, something remarkable happened. Within just 46 days, someone else ran a sub-4-minute mile. And in the years that followed, hundreds of others achieved what was once thought impossible. What changed? Not human physiology. What changed was belief. Once Bannister proved it could be done, others believed they could do it too. And they did. Your inner dialogue creates your beliefs about what's possible for you. If you tell yourself, I can't, it's too hard, I'm not good enough, you create limitations that don't actually exist. Force yourself to question these negative thoughts. Force yourself to replace them with empowering alternatives. Instead of I can't, ask how can I? Instead of it's too hard, say this is challenging, but I'm growing through the challenge. Instead of I'm not good enough, affirm I'm learning and improving every day. I'm not suggesting naive positive thinking. I'm suggesting realistic optimism, acknowledging challenges while maintaining confidence in your ability to overcome them. This shift in inner dialogue can dramatically reduce the amount of force needed to achieve your goals because you're no longer fighting against your own mind. Now let me share something else that can help you force yourself to achieve your goals, understanding the role of enthusiasm and purpose. Enthusiasm comes and goes. It's an emotion, and like all emotions, it fluctuates. If you rely solely on enthusiasm to drive your actions, you'll take action inconsistently. You'll work hard when you feel motivated and slack off when you don't. But purpose is steadier. When you're deeply connected to why your goals matter, when you understand the impact they'll have on your life and the lives of others, you can force yourself to take action even when enthusiasm is low. I remember talking to a woman who had built a successful nonprofit organization serving disadvantaged youth. I asked her about the difficult early years when resources were scarce and progress was slow. She told me there were many days when I didn't feel like continuing. The challenges seemed overwhelming. But I kept coming back to the faces of the kids we were helping. I thought about what would happen to them if we gave up. And that gave me the strength to force myself to continue even on the hardest days. That's the power of purpose. It provides fuel when enthusiasm runs low. It gives meaning to the struggle. It makes the force required to push forward feel worthwhile. What's your purpose? What gives meaning to your goals? Connect with that deeply, and you'll find it easier to force yourself to do what needs to be done, even when it's difficult. Another powerful principle that can help you force yourself to achieve your goals is the concept of identity-based habits. Most people focus on outcomes when setting goals. I want to lose weight. I want to make more money. I want to write a book. There's nothing wrong with outcome-based goals, but they don't address the underlying identity that drives behavior. A more powerful approach is to focus on becoming the type of person who could achieve those outcomes. Instead of I want to lose weight, think I want to become a healthy person. Instead of I want to make more money, think I want to become a valuable professional. Instead of I want to write a book, think I want to become a writer. This shift from outcome to identity changes how you approach forcing yourself to take action. It's no longer just about achieving a specific result. It's about being consistent with the person you're becoming. When faced with a choice, exercise or watch TV, save or spend, write or procrastinate, you can ask yourself, what would a healthy person do? What would a valuable professional do? What would a writer do? These questions make decisions clearer and provide motivation beyond the specific outcome you're pursuing. I've seen people transform their lives through this approach. They stop trying to force themselves to engage in behaviors that conflict with their self-image and start aligning their actions with the person they want to become. And as they consistently act in alignment with that new identity, it becomes who they are, not just what they do. Now, let me address something that many people struggle with, maintaining focus in a world full of distractions. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction. Technology, while offering amazing benefits, also presents constant temptation to divert our attention from what matters most. Forcing yourself to achieve your goals requires forcing yourself to focus, to direct your attention, energy, and resources toward what's truly important rather than what's merely urgent or entertaining. I've found that successful people are masters of elimination. They force themselves to say no to good opportunities so they can say yes to great ones. They force themselves to ignore interesting but irrelevant information so they can focus on what's essential. They force themselves to restrict their efforts to their areas of highest contribution rather than dispersing their energy across too many projects. This isn't easy in our culture of more is better. We're bombarded with messages encouraging us to do more, have more, be more. But achievement often requires less distraction, less busyness, less fragmentation of attention. Force yourself to identify what truly matters for your goals. Force yourself to eliminate or delegate everything else. Force yourself to protect your time and attention as the precious resources they are. I once coached an executive who complained of not having enough time to focus on strategic initiatives. When we analyzed his calendar, we found it packed with meetings that others had scheduled, issues others had deemed urgent, and activities that added little value to his highest priorities. I challenged him to force himself to protect 20% of his work week, just one day, for his most important work. It wasn't easy. He had to say no to meetings, delegate problems, and disappoint people who wanted his immediate attention. But the results were transformative. That 20% of time produced 80% of his meaningful results because it was focused on what truly mattered. What about you? Are you forcing yourself to focus on what's essential for your goals? Or are you allowing yourself to be pulled in too many directions? Another crucial aspect of forcing yourself to achieve your goals is developing resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, adapt to change, and keep going despite difficulties. Resilience isn't something you're born with or without. It's a quality you can develop through deliberate practice. And it's essential for long-term achievement because the path to significant goals is never smooth or straightforward. Force yourself to view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than reasons to quit. Force yourself to look for lessons in failures rather than evidence of your limitations. Force yourself to adapt to changing circumstances rather than clinging to what's familiar but no longer effective. I remember working with a business owner whose company was devastated by an economic downturn. His industry was transformed overnight, and the business model that had worked for decades suddenly became obsolete. Many of his competitors folded, unable or unwilling to adapt. But this man forced himself to see beyond the immediate crisis. He forced himself to learn new skills, explore new markets, and reimagine his business from the ground up. It wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, fear, and frustration. But he persisted, and within a few years, his company had not only survived, but was thriving in ways he couldn't have imagined before the crisis. That's resilience in action. It's not about avoiding difficulties, but about how you respond to them. And developing that resilience often requires forcing yourself to maintain a constructive perspective, even when circumstances are challenging. Now, As we near the end of our time together, I want to emphasize something important. Forcing yourself to achieve your goals isn't about becoming a workaholic or sacrificing your well-being. In fact, it's quite the opposite. True achievement includes balance. It includes taking care of your physical health, nurturing your relationships, and making time for rest and renewal. Sometimes forcing yourself means forcing yourself to stop working and start recovering. It means forcing yourself to maintain boundaries that protect your energy and well-being. I've seen too many people achieve their goals at the cost of their health, their relationships, and their joy. That's not success, it's a costly victory. True success enriches your life in all dimensions, not just one. So as you work to force yourself to achieve your goals, also force yourself to maintain perspective. Force yourself to celebrate progress, not just completion. Force yourself to enjoy the journey, not just the destination. Force yourself to appreciate what you have while working for what you want. In the end, forcing yourself to achieve your goals is about becoming the person you're capable of becoming. It's about fulfilling your potential, not just checking boxes on a to-do list. It's about growth, contribution, and a life of meaning and purpose. You have greatness within you. You have capabilities and potential that you have not yet fully expressed. And unlocking that potential often requires force, the willful decision to do what must be done to become what you can become, to create what only you can create. So I challenge you today, what goal matters most to you right now? What dream have you been postponing? What potential within you remains unexpressed? And what one action could you take today, right now, to move toward that goal, that dream, that potential? Force yourself to take that action. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more ready, not when circumstances are perfect. Now, and then force yourself to take another action, and another, and another. Build the habit of disciplined action. Develop the strength to override momentary discomfort in favor of lasting achievement. Become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. That's how goals are achieved. That's how dreams become reality. That's how potential is fulfilled. Not through wishing, hoping, or waiting, but through forcing yourself to take consistent, purposeful action. You can do this. You have what it takes. Now go out there and prove it to yourself, one forced action at a time. Thank you.